A key characteristic of the weak definitions of sustainability is that substitution is allowed. If you cut down all the forests and replace forest walks with virtual forest walks, that is fine. It may even be better from a human perspective if you edit out the mosquitoes and stuff. But it sits awkwardly with an idea of environmental protection. Strong definitions of strong sustainability sort of counter that and take a different view. And essentially, key characteristics of strong definitions of sustainability is that no substitution is allowed. And the thinking here goes back to people like Elder Leopold and Arne Naess and more recently Pope Francis. If you take this literally, then this stops everything. You cannot cut down a bit of forest to put down a road because you reduce the capital stock of forests. So it is completely impractical to say, well, we should keep things as they are. Because things always change, people die, people get born. And there's a lot of natural dynamics as well. So in practice, some substitution and some compensation must be allowed, but then the key question is, of course, how much? And the idea is there, if you cut down a piece of forest to build a road, then you need to plant trees elsewhere to recreate a forest. The problem with that, of course, is that you put that forest elsewhere and therefore it will not be the same because the soil is different, the climate may be different. And of course you replace old trees with young trees. And you replace a forest that has trees of mixed age with trees that are all the same age. So you can never perfectly substitute things. So the question in applications of strong sustainability is really what compensates for what. And if you cut down a piece of forest in England, should you replant in England, or is Scotland okay, or is Namibia okay to plant new trees? And those are questions that you have to answer if you're going to maintain that strong sustainability is the way to go. You also need to answer the question, you're going to maintain something, but what is that? Are we talking about habitats? Are we composition of species, or are we talking about individual species? Or do we take the species apart and really what we care about is maintaining their genes? And these are real questions. One of the implications of climate change is rapid warming in the Arctic, which is likely to destroy at least part of the ecosystem of the habitat of the polar bear. We want to maintain the Arctic as it is, then we can allow very little climate change. Do we want to maintain the species of polar bear? In which case we can destroy the habitat and stick them in zoos, right? And the polar bear is still around. Or we can realize that polar bears are actually not really a species, they're more like a subspecies. So the polar bear can go extinct, but as long as the grizzly and the brown bear are around, and most of the genes of the polar bear are still there as well. So these are difficult questions, and some would appeal more to environmentalists, some answers would appeal more to environmentalists than others. And another important question here, of course, is what do we do with viruses and pests? If we're going to maintain natural capital stocks, do we also maintain the virus that causes COVID-19? Most people would say we'd rather be rid of it. So these are important questions to answer if you're going to argue for strong sustainability. One problem with strong sustainability, if you phrase it as maintaining natural capital stocks or maintaining capital stocks, then you sort of freeze things in place. And therefore other people have argued that really what we should be focusing on is what do we get out of these capital stocks. We should really be focusing on the yields, and as long as we maintain those, that is fine. And then the key question there is, are these yields that serve humans, in which case we're back to weak definition of sustainability, or is it services to other species as well? And then you need to wonder, like, will there be enough oxygen generated? And if you replace one tree or one species of tree with another species of tree that is just as good at photosynthesis as the original one, then that is fine. And you should not worry so much whether water flows from north to south or from east to west. As long as there's water in your ecosystem, you're fine, and so on and so forth. And that gives a lot more flexibility, and also answer the question, what can you substitute for what? Of course, you need to define what services you're interested in. Oxygen and water are sort of crucial ones. But there's many more services that come, and do you want to maintain all or a subset of them? At what time scale and at what spatial scale? Does it have to be every year or every century? Does it have to be in every locale, or is it good enough if you do this on a continental scale? But a key question, the key argument here is that you would allow some substitution. You do not try to freeze things in time, but you allow natural dynamics as well as human dynamics, while maintaining what you actually care about, and that is the services that come out of these capital stocks. Yet other people have tried to define strong sustainability in terms of ecosystem stability and resilience. This may be an ecocentric viewpoint, or it may be an anthropocentric viewpoint. If you view stability and resilience as stably serving human needs, then this is weak sustainability. But if you say, well, the polar bear has a right to live in and of itself, regardless of the pleasure that humans derive from knowing that polar bears exist and looking at them, that is the crucial distinction between whether this is an anthropocentric or an ecocentric definition. Again, it's easy to say ecosystems should be stable, but of course what you need to define what you mean by that. And you need to define at a spatial scale, local, continental, global, what time scale, minute, day, century. And then of course there's a deeper issue there, a deeper question whether ecosystems are stable of themselves, whether they're naturally stable. And if you say, well, ecosystems should be stable even though they really don't want to be stable, really unstable, then of course you're imposing an unnatural constraint on nature, and you're arguing against yourself. There's lots of questions there, but the point here is that it does place limits on human activity. If we want to maintain the stability of an ecosystem, then that means that there are certain things that humans cannot do. Even if utility goes up, if we do it, this poses a constraint on human behavior, and that is the whole point of strong sustainability.